Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Imagine this for a second. A global military power, famous for its hardware, its defense industry, reportedly trying to buy back advanced systems it sold years ago.
It sounds pretty unusual, doesn't it?
It really does. And today, we're digging into that exact story. Russia's alleged attempt to reacquire S-400 air defense systems from Turkey.
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation with huge implications.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to unpack what this potential move tells us about Russia's situation in Ukraine, maybe some vulnerabilities, and also Turkey's tricky balancing act.
Right, because Turkey's position in all this is incredibly complex.
Definitely. We've gone through the latest reports, the analysis, to really get to the core of it for you. This is a high-stakes game with global ripples.
Crucial for anyone tracking the conflict or just, geopolitics in general.
Okay, let's start with the basics, maybe. The S-400 Triumph. We hear the name a lot. Why is the system so important, and why would Russia be reportedly desperate to get these specific ones back?
Good place to start. The S-400, it's genuinely a top-tier long-range air defense system. It's designed to take out pretty much anything, aircraft, cruise missiles, even some ballistic missiles.
So very capable.
Extremely. Range can be up to 400 kilometers for certain missile types. It's a cornerstone of modern air defense for any nation that has it. But the really interesting part here isn't just the tech, it's the need. Why now? Our sources are pointing to Russia losing multiple S-400 systems of its own in Ukraine, destroyed or damaged.
Okay, and this is where it gets really specific, right? We've seen a figure, I think one source mentioned approximately 18 launchers.
That's the number floating around, yes, 18 launchers.
Now, let's put that number in context for everyone listening. Russia probably started the war with around, 56 full S-400 systems, maybe 16 to 18 battalions worth?
Roughly, yes. That seems to be the consensus estimate.
So losing 18 launchers, that's not just a small dent. That's a significant chunk of their forward-deployed capability potentially gone.
Exactly. It's a substantial blow that directly impacts their ability to, control the airspace over key areas, protect their troops, their logistics hubs.
Which naturally leads to the question, okay, if they've lost them, why not just build more?
Right. And that's where the constraints seem to be showing. Our sources suggest their defense industry is under considerable strain. Sanctions, the war's demands, it's taking a toll. The bottom line seems to be the Russian military reportedly has no spare X-400s just sitting around ready to go.
No spares. Wow.
And we see evidence of this strain elsewhere. They've had to delay transferring a battery to India, a major partner, push back to late 2026, maybe even 2027.
That delay really tells a story, doesn't it? Postponing a big export deal like that.
It speaks volumes, yeah. It points to urgent internal needs, trumping even important international commitments.
So, for you listening, this isn't just about Russia wanting some extra gear. The idea of buying back systems they sold, it screams urgency. It suggests a critical gap in their air defense.
A gap likely created by effective Ukrainian strikes.
Exactly. It highlights Ukraine's success in hitting these high-value Russian assets. This is about plugging a hole fast because their defenses are under serious pressure.
It really points to a scramble, not a planned upgrade.
Okay, but this whole thing involves two players, right? Let's shift focus to Turkey. Why do they have these S-400s that Russia might want back? And what's their story with these systems?
It's complicated.
Very complicated. So Turkey bought 2 S-400 batteries back in 2017. The deal was worth about $2.5 billion.
And why Russian systems? They're a NATO member.
Well, that's the crux of it. They'd been trying for years to buy the American Patriot system, the MIM-104. For various reasons, that deal didn't happen, or at least not in a way Ankara liked. So they turned to Moscow.
A NATO country buying a major Russian air defense system that must have caused waves.
Huge waves. It immediately strained relations with NATO, especially the U.S. The big consequence, as many will remember, was Turkey getting kicked out of the F-35 program.
Right, under the CIETS Act sanctions. Precisely. Countering America's adversaries through Sanctions Act, the worry was that the S-400 operating near F-35s could compromise the jet's stealth and sensitive systems. That Russia could potentially gather intelligence via the S-400.
Okay, so Turkey pays billions, takes a massive hit to its relationship with NATO allies, loses access to the F-35, all for this advanced S-400 system. But here's the kicker, isn't it?
Go on.
Our sources say they haven't even activated them. They arrived in 2019. Erdogan said they'd be operational by April 2020. But nope, still in storage.
That appears to be the case. Essentially $2.5 billion worth of advanced hardware sitting in a warehouse unused.
It's almost absurd. All that geopolitical pain for systems that aren't even switched on.
And it's not just the upfront cost. These things need maintenance, regular specialized upkeep. So Turkey is still paying money for these systems that are, frankly, a political liability and aren't contributing to their defense.
Just driving a wedge between Ankara and Washington.
That's a big part of it, yes.
Well,
It's an expensive, inactive asset creating ongoing diplomatic friction.
which naturally leads to talk about how Turkey could maybe get rid of them and potentially get back into the F-35 program.
Exactly. There's been loads of speculation. Could they sell them to someone else? India, maybe Pakistan? Could they even donate them to Ukraine or the U.S.?
But those last two seem unlikely. Wouldn't Russia have to approve?
Highly unlikely, yes. Moscow would almost certainly have to greenlight any transfer like that, especially transferring them to be studied by the U.S. or used against Russia itself. That seems like a non-starter in the current climate.
But you mentioned Turkey might have gained some leverage initially, showing independence from NATO, even with the F-35 cost. Was it purely bad for them?
That's a fair point. It wasn't all negative from Ankara's perspective, perhaps. They projected strategic autonomy, played to a domestic audience, but the long-term cost, financial and strategic, especially losing the F-35's interoperability within NATO, has been immense. So this potential buyback scenario, it suddenly looks quite, well, pragmatic for Turkey, doesn't it?
How so?
It lets them offload this very expensive, unused, politically toxic asset. They might recoup some money, and crucially, it could remove the main obstacle to potentially rejoining the F-35 program. It's a way out of a really awkward corner.
A potential win-win, almost. Russia gets needed systems, Turkey gets rid of a problem, and maybe gets F-35s back.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Though we have to mention the official denials.
Right. There was that report where a Turkish official told RIA Novosti, the Russian news agency, basically no such situation, asking where the reports came from, and the Turkish Defense Ministry.
Silent.
Yeah, official silence or denial. But the underlying strategic logic for both sides is pretty compelling, isn't it? Even if this specific deal isn't happening right now, the pressures pushing towards something like it are very real.
So let's tie this all together. What does it really signal about the war? If Russia is seriously considering buying back its own systems, how desperate does that make them look? And does it mean Ukraine is gaining the upper hand, the initiative? Well, the fact that they'd even consider buying back these unused systems from Turkey, instead of just relying on their own production, that's a strong signal. It points to an urgent, significant need.
Urgent because?
Because they need to replace destroyed systems in Ukraine quickly. It suggests their own industrial base just can't keep up with the attrition rate right now. It highlights a real strain, a vulnerability.
So the desperation angle, it seems valid.
I think urgency and constraint are perhaps better words, but yes, it signifies a considerable degree. When a major power has to look at reacquiring exported systems, that's not normal. It points to an acute gap they need to fill immediately to maintain their defensive posture.
It's like running out of something critical and having to buy it back from someone you sold it to earlier.
Exactly. It suggests the losses in Ukraine are serious and impacting their operational capacity more deeply than perhaps we thought. It's a symptom of battlefield successes by Ukraine against these high-value assets.
And what about the initiative? Does this mean Ukraine has it? Our sources don't explicitly say that, do they?
No, not in those exact terms. But Russia's reported scramble for S-400s, it's powerful evidence of how effective Ukrainian operations have been.
How so?
Think about it. Ukraine is consistently managing to find and hit these systems, whether it's with long-range missiles like ATACMS or sophisticated drone swarm tactics or better intelligence.
Yeah.
They're successfully degrading Russia's air defense umbrella.
So hitting the S-400s isn't just symbolic, it has real impact.
Absolutely. It forces Russia into these kinds of unusual, maybe even desperate measures just to try and plug the gaps. It shows that Ukrainian pressure on critical Russian military infrastructure is working. It's directly affecting Russia's ability to operate securely.
That raises a big question then, doesn't it?
Which is?
How sustainable is Russia's war effort if its key defensive systems are under this much pressure? If they have to resort to things like trying to buy back exported gear?
That's the critical question, isn't it? If your air defenses are being systematically degraded faster than you can replace them through normal means, what does that mean for protecting your forces, your logistics, your command centers? It certainly complicates their strategic objectives.
And it probably doesn't look great internationally either for Russia as a reliable arms supplier.
That's another ripple effect, yes. It
Right.
impacts perceptions of their military-industrial strength.
Okay, so this deep dive really pulls back the curtain on some critical dynamics. Russia's reported bid for Turkey's S-400s looks like a flashing red light signaling significant losses in Ukraine and an urgent need to plug defensive holes.
And for Turkey, it's this complex geopolitical balancing costs, NATO relations, and potential strategic opportunities. A really tricky position.
It's military necessity crashing into diplomatic maneuvering, big time, with huge stakes for the war and maybe even future alliances.
And it really throws the spotlight back onto air defense, doesn't it? How critical it is in modern warfare. The ability to control or at least effectively contest the airspace is just paramount.
Seeing a system like the S-400 considered top tier being treated like this,
It forces a rethink, I think. If these systems can be targeted and destroyed effectively, what does that mean for everyone's defensive posture? How do nations adapt? What lessons are being learned right now in Ukraine about survivability, about countermeasures? It's a constant evolution.
a truly fascinating and frankly crucial strategic puzzle playing out in real time. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope peeling back the layers on this S-400 story leaves you feeling a bit more informed.
Yeah, definitely a lot to think about there.
Indeed. Until next time, stay curious. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this discussion valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the Geostrategic podcast for more in-depth analysis on topics that shape our world. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay tuned for the next episode.